Alrighty. So, hi, Holly. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your pregnancy journey?
Yeah, I am originally from the UK and I'm now I've been living in New Zealand for about 5.5 years. And I met my partner Nick over in the UK in London. He promised a life of beaches and sunshine in New Zealand, and so convinced me to move over. And yeah, we've been together, oh gosh, just over 7.5 years. And last year we got engaged, and now I'm sat here with a baby a year later, which is quite funny, how things change in a year. But yeah, we decided at the beginning of this year to start trying for a baby. I think just the mixture of not being able to travel anywhere, still being in lockdown, no sign of a wedding happening anytime soon. We decided it would be a good time to start trying. And I think it's quite funny when you say like start trying, because you don't really know what you're letting yourself in for, I think. And also, I had this perception that it would probably take a long time. So we'd be trying for quite a long time, and, we'd have maybe another year of like no baby, and, that would be us. And actually, very fortunately for us, we conceived very quickly, and it was a bit of a surprise. Um, yeah, definitely a bit of a surprise, but yeah, very fortunate, obviously, that we conceived so quickly.
Mm.
And yeah, we found out in March, I think it is now. And that was quite surreal, finding out that we were having a baby. Like, I think you always imagine that moment in your head, what that's going to be like. And it was probably quite different, actually. And it just kind of dawned on me one day that I thought I was pregnant as well. Like, I just had this feeling, which is quite funny. I don't know if that's that instinct just already
Mm.
creeping in, but I just had
Mm.
this feeling that I was pregnant one day, sat at my desk at work. Um, and yeah, then we kind of were in it. Once you find out, that's it, isn't it? Your whole focus is your pregnancy, and we were just kind of in it from day one. And that was really interesting at the beginning, learning the whole system, because I didn't have too many friends in New Zealand that had babies. So figuring out, like, okay, so, oh, it's not your doctor that looks after you, you have your
Mm.
lead maternity carer, and how you go about finding a midwife. And we kind of started on that journey. But I must say, it is quite an easy process in New Zealand, at least, to kind of, start connecting with midwives and finding your person and going for the scans and things like that. But yeah, again, we were really fortunate. I had a very straightforward pregnancy. I had a very healthy pregnancy, no kind of scares, beyond you just kind of having worries some days about the baby not moving. But very straightforward. We had, all our scans were great. Everything looked really great. And yeah, just was kind of a bit easier than I expected, probably. And I think it just feels very natural, like all the changes that are happening in your body, like it just feels like it should be happening, if that makes sense, which
Mm.
sounds kind of weird, but like once you're in it, you're like, this all makes sense, it all
Mm.
feels like this is what should be happening.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I felt quite kind of in sync with what was happening.
Mm.
The first trimester was definitely rough, like I definitely felt nauseous and really tired, but it's funny how quickly you forget that. Like once you're in the second trimester and you're
Mm.
feeling great and you've got all
Mm.
the energy, you forget about the third or the first. And then
Mm.
when you're in the third and feeling a bit tired, you kind of forget about how good you felt in the second, is what I
Mm.
found.
Mm.
But yeah, overall, I had a really easy pregnancy and just felt really fortunate to be experiencing it, actually. Like, I found it kind of amazing to watch my body change and feel the baby move and all those kind
Mm.
of milestones that happen.
Mm. Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So at the end of your pregnancy, how did that go? And how did your labor start?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's a really strange period. So I finished work and I had all up in the end, I had 3 weeks off work, which was actually a really lovely time. And I would definitely, if you're in the position to have that time off, it's definitely a good time to have, I think, with yourself. Um, but it's funny because at the end, everybody would ask us, like, are you guys ready? Are you prepared? And you're like, well, I think so, but I don't know what I'm letting myself in for. So it was kind of this really weird, like, unsettling feeling, actually. It was
Mm.
probably the point that I felt the most unsettled,
Mhm.
because you're just waiting, like, you
Yeah.
don't know when the baby's going to come. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know if you've got everything you need. You know, it just feels quite uncertain. And I think for us as well, you know, we were in lockdown in Auckland, that added to the uncertainty as well, and in COVID and things like that, which many people will relate to. That just kind of added to the uncertainty as well. And we couldn't really do anything or go anywhere, you know. So that it was kind of that 3 weeks was the period.
Yeah, not a lot of distractions, not a lot of things that you can go out and distract yourself with as you're waiting.
Yeah, totally. And then just like, you know, anxiety around COVID being around, and you're so aware of like, you know, being the protector for another life, you know, so you're just kind of so aware of like making sure you stay safe for yourself, yes, but also your baby as well. So that 3 weeks is kind of strange, like lovely in some ways, but strange in other ways. And then, you know, like there's all like the family betting on what day he's going to come, and you know, Nick himself, and you know, we were just, I think, ready for him to be here as well. And so yeah, we also, Nick's birthday is in November, so he just had his birthday on the 14th, so we were also like, is he going to come on Nick's birthday, is he not? So we had that going around as well. But yeah, we actually ended up on the Saturday. It was a lovely day in Auckland, nice and sunny. So we went to Cheltenham Beach over in near Devonport. And in the morning, I'd kind of had like a tiny bit of like kind of bloody discharge. And I hadn't had anything like that throughout my pregnancy. So I was like, oh, okay, this is different. So Nick had texted my midwife, and she was like, yep, that's probably like a bit of the show starting, like, you know, this still could be weeks, like don't kind of get too excited, which is obviously really hard when you see that. So we went to the beach, kind of had a normal day, and then as we were at the beach, I started kind of getting this like cramping sensation in my tummy. And again, I'd had nothing like that throughout my pregnancy, so I kind of knew, I was like, something feels different. And we got home, and we were going to actually have friends come round for socially distance outside dinner to our house. And I got out the shower and I said to Nick, I was like, I don't think people should come round. I was like, I think something's happening. I think yeah, we need to cancel.
And can I ask, how many weeks were you? Were you past your due date?
No, I was 39 and maybe like 3 or 4 days.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah, 3 days, I think. And I mean, I felt about like 100 years pregnant, but yeah. And so, yeah, we ordered some Thai. We kind of sat on the sofa, we watched a film, had kind of a normal evening, I guess. And I still had this cramping sensation. And then we got into bed, and then I think I slept for maybe a couple of hours, and I woke up and I could just feel this kind of wave, actually, which is such a perfect word to describe it. I could just feel these waves. And so, super premature of us, Nick starts timing the contraction. And at 4 a.m. he rings the midwife, and he's like, this is the timing of the contractions. And she's like, yep, go to sleep, guys. Like, you know, it's not happening. And you're like, what? So we obviously couldn't sleep, like, you know, even though you should, we were just like that mixture of like anxious and excited. You know, Nick's still timing the contractions because he wants to know what's happening. And it kind of continued throughout the night like that. And then around, I think maybe like 7, I decided to get in the shower and just see if that would like ease the pain, because it was kind of getting quite intense, I guess, then. Which definitely helped. Like the shower was definitely my best friend. And then at like 10 or 11, I think it was, in the morning on Sunday morning, we were like, okay, the contractions are really close together. We're going to go to birth care, which was the place we planned to give birth. So we rocked up at birth care in Parnell, and we met my midwife there. And she had a look, and she was like, okay, you're only 4 centimeters. My advice would be go home. Like, we were like, no, we think we should stay here. She was just talking, you know, really like calmly was talking us through it could be a while still, and you'd be so much more comfortable at home, which I had read, you know, quite a lot of the stories in your book. And I also read Ina May's book when I was pregnant as well, and read lots of the birth stories in there as well, so many similar situations of people going early and then going home. And I think at the time I was a bit anxious about that, because I was like, oh, shouldn't I be in the place where I'm going to give birth? But like on reflection, that was such a good idea, because then when we could come home, like you have all your own stuff, you can be comfortable.
Yeah.
It feels like safe. I think safer is probably the word to describe it, safer space. And so we came home, tried to eat something, which, it was quite interesting how you don't feel hungry when you're in those stages. But then basically the rest of Sunday we were at home. I was sat on my birth ball, which was also my best friend, or in the shower, basically going between those two things. And Nick was there the whole time trying to like supply some snacks and water. And really the thing that was getting me through was my breathing, you know, that in the hypnobirthing class. And I think the combination of the wave breath was like amazing. That was my favorite thing, and really gave me this focus. And then either doing the relaxed breath, or actually Nick would just kind of do it, kind of tapping on my shoulder, holding my shoulder down, which was a really nice grounding moment in those relax. And we'd have music on as well, kind of like nice relaxing music. And then when I would have a shower, that we'd have lavender oil, so we kind of using all those things, and it definitely meant that it felt very calm at home. Like you know, we didn't feel panicked, we felt very chilled and very calm. And we were lucky enough to have my midwife come twice to home as well and examine and see how we're going and tracking progress. And so I think around the last time she came around kind of 9 p.m. on Sunday, I was 7 centimeters, and she said, you know, next time we'll see each other is at birth care in about 4 hours. And by this time it was very intense for me, like you know, it definitely feels quite painful, but it's kind of a pain that you ride out almost, is the only way I can describe it. And
were you able to breathe through it?
That's the thing. I just kind of kept those techniques in my mind, and I almost just went into this trance, is like the only way I can describe it. Like I was so focused on like every surge or wave coming that I would use that breath, you know, and that was just my only focus. I kind of didn't, like Nick would ask me questions and I just wouldn't answer because I was just so in the zone. And the shower for me was amazing. Like, you know, being in the shower, being in hot water, having lavender, we had no lights on, just some candles, like keeping it dark, like that for me was amazing as well. And then it got to about 11 and the waves were really close, starting to get very close together. And I just knew that I needed to go to birth care. I just had this overwhelming sense of like, I need to go. And so
a different feeling from the first time you went in.
Yes.
Now it was your instincts kicking in. I need to go.
Yeah, 100%. I need to go. And I also knew, you know, thankfully we live quite close by, but I just knew the journey was going to become challenging if I left any later. So we got in, everything was already in the car, which is a very good tip, I would say. Make sure your car's just already packed so you don't have to worry. And I actually put my headphones on and had the affirmation track that I had recorded from you, which also the affirmations is something I use pretty much daily in my pregnancy. So like literally when I was brushing my teeth or doing anything like that, I just had like the affirmations playing, and I also had the affirmations stuck up in the bathroom so I could see them. And actually that on the journey to birth care really helped because I had no focus on, and I just closed my eyes, listened to those affirmations. And when we got to birth care, it was very intense for me. And that was the only point where I struggled tiny bit to stay focused, because obviously you have those outside distractions. Someone was asking for my NHI number, like, you know, like it's, you know, where's our midwife? So that was probably the most challenging part, to stay focused. But once we got into the birthing suite and once my midwife had got there, I was kind of able to get myself back into the zone. And you know, birth care was amazing. We were able to keep all the lights really low. We could have our own music on. It was very calm. It was just my midwife and Nick in the room. And I really wanted to use the pool, so they filled up the pool. So I got pretty much straight into the pool. And for me, that period between maybe like 11:30 to when George was born at 3:30, in some ways felt like the quickest part for me. Like it felt probably like 10 minutes, which
Yep.
is crazy. And for
Yep.
Nick, it was the longest part.
Yep. And there's I often say that in my classes. For a birthing mum, the time passes really quickly, but for the birth support people, it goes on forever.
Totally. And yeah, like now for me looking back, that's the part I can't remember the most, because I was so deeply in my own world. Like I was just completely focused.
Perfect.
And yeah, I guess for, you know, until we got to the part of pushing, I was just very focused on every surge. It was just like, I need to remember this breath. It definitely got more challenging, like I'm not gonna lie. You know, and I had decided I didn't want to use, you know, I didn't want any intervention or as little intervention as possible. So, you know, I needed to use my breath really as the only thing to get me through. But I found the combination of being in the water, having my breath, and staying focused and not really answering any questions or talking to people, just my way of getting through. And then, yeah, we were lucky enough to have another midwife kind of arrive just before I started pushing. So I had kind of like a really nice, two really amazing supportive midwives. And then, yeah, it just got to the point where, again, I had this overwhelming instinctive need to push. Like I was just definitely coming. I can just feel him. And that was really interesting, because that's why I had to change gears then and be like, okay, it's not about the wave breath, and it's not about relax, and it's not about like riding it out. Now I need to focus on like pushing him out. And I had done less practice on like my kind of down breathing or that part. Actually, I'd focused a lot on my wave breathing and getting myself through surges. So it was only in the last couple of weeks that I'd started to really focus on that. And it took me a while to get into the rhythm of what I was doing. But then once I had found that and kind of was working, I was just kind of imagining him, like the journey he had to go through, I guess. And my midwife, you know, talked to me about like the, you know, how he needed to come out. It wasn't straight out, he needed to come around. And so she was kind of visually talking to me about that. So I had this really strong visual of, I'm quite a visual person, and I had this strong visual of kind of how he needed to come out.
Nice.
And yeah, I would say, even though it hurt, I found the pushing part the easiest part.
Yeah. Wow.
Once I had found that breath.
So that down breath, directing the energy down.
Yeah. 100%. I could really use, I found that worked really well with the visual of like kind of, okay, he needs to come round. And I had watched quite a few birth videos where I think some of the ones you had sent me, where they say, you know, you can touch baby's head and as they're coming out, and I was like, oh, I'd never do that. Like that's just not, you know, like I'm just gonna do that. And actually, you know, when we kind of got to that point, my midwife said, touch, you know, you can touch his head, you can feel him. And I was like, when I did it, I was like, whoa, that's so powerful. Like, okay, that was like the moment where I actually realized what I was doing. And that just gave me this amazing, it's a kind of second burst. And
you're still in the pool at this time?
Still in the pool, yeah. And I had not planned on that. So me and my midwife had talked about my preferences a couple of weeks before, and kind of had talked about I wanted to be in the pool, but then when I was ready to give birth, and especially for the placenta, I'd get out the pool. But again, honestly, at that point, I was so focused and I was so in the zone that if I had to move, I think I would have completely lost it. And I, you know, my midwife said to me afterwards, I didn't remember this at the time, she'd said to me, shall we get out now? And I just apparently was like, absolutely not. So thankfully the other midwife that had come she pretty much only does home births, and so she was really used as well to babies being born in the water and placentas being birthed in the water. So that was really great as well. She felt really confident about that. And what was really interesting is my waters actually never broke. So I never had that, like, I never had that kind of waters breaking sensation that I was looking for. And my waters broke in the water, like just before he was born.
So he almost came out in call with his sac.
He did. He had the membrane around him, which again, my midwives were quite happy about that he was born and he had that around him.
It's beautiful.
So it that was quite funny as well, because I was waiting for that moment and that sensation. But actually it didn't really matter in the end, especially once I was in the water as well. yeah, and so for me that felt super quick, the pushing part, and once his head was out, it was really easy. Well, it felt really easy compared to the rest of it. And then it's just such a trippy kind of surreal moment when you actually realize the baby's here. Like, I think that, you know, was just so surreal, and that you've done it as well. That was just really surreal. And then actually you know, something I don't think people talk about too much, or I didn't know about, was birthing the placenta, you know, that afterwards. And that, again, just using my down breathing for that was really easy, you know. That was really quick. So yeah, it was just such an amazing, surreal, kind of trippy experience, to be honest. Like, it was definitely painful, like, you know, it definitely hurt, it was definitely painful, but
you could cope,
manageable, you know, like so manageable. Like, I did use a tiny bit of gas towards the end. I kind of had a moment where I was getting quite tired, and I questioned whether I could do it, you know, and everyone was like, you can do it. My mind was like, have a tiny bit of gas, or I'll help distract you. But otherwise I didn't use anything else apart from my breathing, which just shows you can you know, if you're in a position to, you can totally do it that way. So yeah, it was just amazing, to be honest. Like, I feel very privileged to have been able to experience it. Yeah, and in that way.
Absolutely amazing. And so right now, how old is George as we record this?
It is 7 no, he's 8 days old.
He's 8 days old. And so how's the last 8 days been?
It's been very surreal as well. I mean, I think the first, like, straight afterwards, it just is all so, you know, we just both, Nick and I, just felt in a daze, you know, and we hadn't slept for quite a few days at this point. It just feels really surreal that suddenly he's here, you know, like, and that feels really quick. You're like, oh wow, he's here, even though it's been like almost 10 months and, you know, 28 hours of labor, whatever it was. But it was just amazing, you know, like, seeing him and seeing what he looks like, and you know, he was healthy, and everything was good with him, which was really important, you know. Like, and actually, something I forgot to mention is, throughout the whole labor, the midwife's obviously checking his heartbeat and checking how he's going, and he was super chilled the whole time. Like, you know, there was never any issues there. And I think really the breathing and being in the water and being in the calm situation probably helped with that as well. He never got in any distress, which, again, really, really fortunate for that as well. But yeah, the first few hours was really tricky, and we were in the birthing suite at birth care for quite a few hours, you know. I was getting kind of checked out, and he was getting cleaned up and checked out and things. And then we spent 3 days in birth care, which was amazing. I just such an extraordinary service that's on offer in New Zealand. Having those incredible midwives, you know, just feel so looked after, like, and protected and safe again. And because, you know, this was our first baby, so we had no idea what we're doing. And my parents are in the UK, unfortunately, so I don't have my family around me. So I think having, you know, those midwives with so much experience and kind of care made us feel, you know, gave us a boost of confidence from the beginning. And it's amazing looking at, like, the day he was born to the day we were discharged, like, how we felt, you know, like, the first day we were like, how do we pass him to each other? Like, how do we go from one person to the other? Or how do we change nappy? Or how do we swaddle him? How do we put clothes on him? Like, we just didn't know what we were doing. So we'd phone the midwife for every question. And then I look at us, like, on the day we left, or even now, like, you know, now we just know how to pass them to each other, or how to put clothes on him, or, you know, like, all those really basic things that we just didn't know how to do on the first day. So yeah, being in birth care was amazing, and it felt like, you know, we were in a bubble, because, again, because of lockdown, we couldn't have visitors in and we could leave. But I actually think that was in some ways really good, because we just got time, the three of us, and we got to kind of be in our bubble and really relax as well.
Yeah, a lot of people saying that it's really beneficial not having the interruptions and the visitors. And feeding went all okay?
Yeah, feeding was, like, from kind of the get-go was pretty good. Like, he latched on really easily. And that's a whole nother experience that you're learning, you know, like, he's learning, I'm learning. It definitely, we were saying, it feels like a 3-person job at the moment still. Like, we're not quite at the point where it feels like we're completely in sync. But yeah, the initial breastfeeding and kind of having the midwives there to just show you what to do was really invaluable. And then we got to go home, which was lovely, because I think by that point you're kind of craving your own home and you know, wanting to be in your own space. But then it comes with, you know, oh, we don't have the midwife to call, like we're just
at 2 a.m. there's no one going to come running in.
Yeah, so that it definitely took us a couple of days to adjust into like being at home, and you know, like our setup is completely different to birthcare, so getting into our routine. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're only 8 days in, we're taking everything hour by hour, to be honest, like day by day. But I think we're starting to kind of know what we need to do a lot more, and you know, we don't have a routine and he doesn't have a routine, but like we're starting to figure it out. Yeah.
What an amazing journey.
Yeah,
huge congratulations to both of you.
Yeah,
you've just done so well.
And I think the other thing that was great is because Nick had read your book and came to hypnobirthing as well. He knew exactly what I was doing, and that was like, I really felt like we were, even though I was doing all the work, I felt like we were a team, because he understood like what I was doing and what he needed to do as well. And it's continued to feel like that. So I think we're lucky in that respect as well, that we feel like we're a team kind of doing it together. But it was definitely amazing.
Excellent. Awesome. I thank you so much for sharing this story with us. It's a really inspiring story.
I think it's just nice to know, like, this was my preference, that this is kind of how it went, and I didn't, I had a moment where I was like, oh, it's not going to go to plan, and I like a plan, and I like things going to plan, so it's kind of amazing that it did. But I think just kind of being calm and being focused and staying in the moment as much as you can, and not projecting what's going to happen in 2 hours time or 4 hours time. And I cannot like praise enough the breathing techniques. Like for me, the wave breathing was just like the ultimate. And I would quite often I kind of practiced yoga before my pregnancy and throughout my pregnancy, and so I'd quite often do a yoga session, and then I would do my wave breathing straight after, which I think really helped to kind of build like a bit of a routine for me to build in and make sure I actually did it, but also just to kind of be in that frame of mind. But yeah, I definitely think you need to practice it. You know, you need to build it into your day-to-day, and you need to practice it, because then when it comes to needing to use it, it's kind of second nature, which I know you say a lot.
Yes, I do.
And definitely, you know, once I had no work as well to distract me, that was really great. You know, those last 3 weeks I could do it daily and get into the zone. But yeah, I'm definitely fortunate. I had a really good healthy pregnancy and, you know, healthy baby, so I know that can't be the same for everybody.
No,
but I just, for people that do have a healthy pregnancy, you know, before I got pregnant I was terrified of birth, to be honest with you, like, you know, and I would have said like straight in a hospital, all the doctors, all the drugs, all the intervention, everything. And that's been probably the most amazing thing, being pregnant and giving birth, is learning and educating myself around, you know, actually how it can be. And the experience you can have is
and that you have everything you need within you to be able to do this.
It's amazing. Like, you don't, you know, we grow the babies, we're continuing to grow them now, you know, like by feeding them, and it's all just from your body, like, and your brain, I guess. But you don't, you know, if everything is going well, you don't need the intervention at all. And I also think it's a privilege to experience it as well, you know, like experience those feelings and feel what your body can do is just incredible. Like now when I sit here, I can't believe I did it.
You did.
I know.
You did
like,
it.
I know. Like, I look at George and I'm like, oh, I can't believe, like, I grew him. I gave birth to him. I'm still growing him. It's I think it's a real privilege, and I think we definitely need to make sure more people hear about these kind of stories, these sides of things, and less about the kind of horror stories, intervention, you know, side of things. Not to say that they don't happen, I know, but yeah, I think
that it can be how you experienced.
Yeah, exactly. It can be. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be.
And it's really interesting because talking to like all my friends and my girlfriends, particularly afterwards, and telling them about, you know, my birth story, they were all just really surprised. You know, they just haven't heard a story like that. So I really hope also by talking to my girlfriends, it makes them feel more confident in themselves, you know, once they get to that point as well.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Holly, and wishing you all the best, you and Nick and George, all the best on your parenting journey.
Thank you.